what we're going to talk about today on this beautiful, slightly chilly Friday is actually testosterone, which is a really important hormone that I think often gets overlooked in the fertility journey. Something that I work with quite a bit, especially with women who have PCOS. So if that's you, make sure you stick around. This is going to be a really informative. We're going to talk about what testosterone is, what does it do in the body, what does high testosterone look like, what does low testosterone look like, how do we test, what do we do about it? So a lot of info coming at you. I'm going to try not to talk too fast, but I also don't want to keep you too long. Also, I'm hungry for lunch. So if you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. I'm just going to open, but quickly going to open the actual Facebook stream maybe and see if it's just in my software that it's not working. All right. Oh, it's playing captions. So fancy. Okay. We're just going to roll with it. I think it's working. It looks like it's working. So we're going to roll with this. So we are going to talk about testosterone. Testosterone is one of the, like I mentioned, kind of forgotten about hormones when we're talking about fertility. It, funny enough, is not one of the hormones I dive into in my 3-pillar fertility success system for everybody. But when we're working with someone with high androgens or with PCOS, we loop that in because it's really important and it can actually be at the root cause in terms of why you aren't getting pregnant. So in Fertility Confidence Method, this is how we work in that personalization, that individualization. And if you're curious about learning more about that and how you can work with me and my team, I encourage you to book a clarity call, which I will put a link at the end for you to do so. Testosterone is also something that is important for men. So we're going to focus on women today, but I'll kind of throw in there where this works in the male body. Obviously, this is the male dominant hormone, but women also need it as well. So for both you and your partner, testosterone can be a big player in terms of your success. So testosterone is what we call an androgen. And it is normally thought of as a male hormone. But like I said, women need testosterone as well. We just need it in different degrees. So for men, their dominant hormonal pattern is testosterone related. For women, we don't need as much, but we don't want to have too little. We have, I like to call this a very narrow window of opportunity when it comes to testosterone. So we need to be in this tiny little box. If we're too high, we don't feel good. It impacts fertility. If we're too low, we really don't feel good. It might be impacting fertility. So we have this very narrow window. Testosterone is mainly made in the adrenals, based off of our stress hormones / DHEA, which is an adrenal hormone. So released from your adrenals, it's then metabolized into testosterone in the body. Your ovaries also make a small amount of testosterone. It's very important, not just from the fertility standpoint, but for building muscle, for feeling motivated and confident and sexy. That's where testosterone really comes into play. It helps with mood. It boosts norepinephrine in the brain. It makes us feel good, especially men. This is like a huge feel-good hormone for men. If their testosterone is low, depression is really common. Lack of motivation, lack of desire, lack of drive is really common. It can help with memory function, and it's all about sexual interest when it comes to testosterone as well. So our desire, our libido is very strongly linked to testosterone levels and estrogen and a little progesterone. But testosterone, let me know in the comments. I think most of us, when we hear or think about testosterone, we immediately think about sex drive, but there's so much more to it than that in the body. But it's also that. So something that is important, I think, to note is naturally as we age, as women, all of our hormones decrease, testosterone included. So through the normal aging process, our testosterone goes down, and usually so does our sex drive. So replenishing testosterone, helping to balance our adrenal hormones, helping to balance our sex hormones are going to keep us feeling vital long term, which I think is really important. I see a mixture in my practice of high and low testosterone. So I've worked on both ends of the spectrum. High testosterone typically being common in that population of women with PCOS, or women who have high cortisol issues. So if you are go, high masculine energy, if you are a CEO, if you're a business owner, if you're a leader, you likely have a higher masculine energy. No judgment. I'm with ya. But that can actually lead to androgenic hormone imbalances. If your DHEA is being pumped out because your cortisol is high, you're maybe you don't feel stressed in the traditional sense of the word, but you are just constantly on the move, next thing, banging out tasks, taking care of this, being a boss at work, being the boss at home, your DHEA is likely elevated. That, like I mentioned earlier, is going to get converted into testosterone, so leading to that higher androgen state. Low testosterone being more common in our older population with menopause, obviously, but also with, women who've been on the birth control pill or the hormonal IUD for a long time. Hormonal birth control increases something called sex hormone binding globulin. This binds your testosterone up. So even if your body's making adequate testosterone, if your binding globulin, your sex hormone binding globulin is elevated, you aren't going to get to use that testosterone. So you're not going to feel it. It's just going to basically be null and void and gone. So when we're on the pill for long periods of time, a very common side effect is low libido, low sex drive. That is because not only are you not making estrogen either, which is an important part of the picture, but your sex hormone binding globulin is eating up all your testosterone. And this takes time to reverse. So if you are, a year, 2 years off the pill and you're still like, oh, my sex drive, not so good, that still might be why. And so working on balancing those out will obviously help with that. Again, I focus on the sex drive piece from a symptom perspective because I do think that's probably the most common thing that women feel. So high and low, both common, two separate things, two separate symptom profiles, which I'll get into in a second here, and also two different ways it can impact fertility. So if you're trying to get pregnant, this is an important conversation to have that goes beyond libido. Okay, so high androgens. What does that look like? If you're sitting there going, I don't even know if I have high androgens, let me know in the comments. Have you been diagnosed with high androgens? Do you know you have high androgens? Do you suspect it? Are you just not sure? What that might look like if you are unsure in terms of symptoms are acne, especially face, jaw, chin acne, deep cystic lesions. That is a very androgenic acne, a very inflammatory DHT acne. Also chest, back, and shoulders. Body acne tends to be more androgenic. Unwanted hair growth on your face, on your nipples, on your belly, those dark, coarse hairs that you have to pluck. Maybe it's just one or two, possibly within the realm of normal. More than that, more frequent, it getting worse, or even you needing to shave or dermaplane or do laser hair removal in places women don't usually do laser hair removal. That can be a sign of high androgens. Actually losing hair on your head. So we grow hair on our chin and we lose it on our head when we have high androgens. It's a cruel joke, honestly. But that thinning hair, that hair loss, high DHEA, so that boss mentality, that masculine energy, that high DHEA, we're going to start losing our hair. This is something that really happens to me when stress is actually high. It's usually my first sign that I'm doing too much. I'm taking on too much. I'm not focusing on me enough. My hair starts to fall out. So thinking about that, there's other reasons we lose hair: low B12, low iron, postpartum. If you are freshly postpartum, the changes there. So there's other potential reasons. Your thyroid is another one, but also those high androgens. Darkened patches of skin, so typically in folds, so your armpits, behind your knees, if the skin there is a little bit darker, that can be a sign. Having irregular periods, so delayed ovulation, long cycles, absent cycles, so no ovulation, no periods at all. Feeling more irritated, agitated, and angry, that can be a sign of high testosterone. And also fatigue. Again, just I think more so coming from the adrenal piece. Too much production is typically an adrenal overdrive, but it also can be coming stimulated from insulin resistance. So if your insulin is elevated, it's telling your ovaries to make more testosterone. So remember, we make testosterone, from your adrenals and from your ovaries. Adrenals, we think stress, that's going to be the bigger impact. And then ovaries, we think insulin resistance. So your insulin might actually be driving more testosterone production. And we'll talk a little bit more in a sec how that actually impacts fertility. Deficient signs, so low testosterone, we're thinking depression, low mood. So like I mentioned with men, that tends to be a really common symptom. It's true for women as well, that low sex drive. Dry, thin hair. So you lose a lot of your like shine and sparkle when you don't have testosterone. Feeling a lack of self-esteem, feeling a lack of confidence, feeling lack of motivation. Testosterone, again, is a very masculine hormone. It's that masculine energy, that like go-getter energy, which we'll maybe get into in another video, how I believe the feminine energy is actually much better at achieving this if we know how to harness it properly. But that's hormonally how that is driven. Low energy, fatigue, of course, weight gain, lack of muscle definition. So actually losing muscle and gaining fat can be a sign of androgen imbalance. In terms of facial aspects, like saggy, droopy skin, droopy eyelids, thin, like droopy lips, because our skin actually loses elasticity. Our collagen production is impacted. We're going to get more wrinkles if our testosterone is low. So all of this being said, yes, we're here because we want to get pregnant, but these hormones play a really large role in so many aspects of your life. So it's really important we take into consideration. How your testosterone might be lowering, like I mentioned, menopause, so age. It's naturally going to happen, but there are things we can do to help support your body through that. Adrenal stress or burnout. So if you've pushed your adrenals past the point of exhaustion, you're no longer actually pumping out the DHEA or the cortisol because your body just cannot any longer. There's going to be less of those hormones to be converted downstream to testosterone. Less production, less testosterone from burnout, basically. So we're looking at high stress, but highly functioning, over-functioning adrenals leading to high. And then we're looking at high stress that's now caused burnout, going to low testosterone. Then hormonal birth control. So the pill, hormonal IUD, the patch, the NuvaRing, whatever that is, anything hormonal, estrogen or progesterone, doesn't matter. It increases that sex hormone binding globulin. So it eats up all that testosterone that you actually have, making none available to your body. So it looks like you have a deficiency. You feel like you have a deficiency. Hormones are all about this elusive balance. We're always looking to balance our hormones. That's probably why most 2,000 plus of you are in this group with me right now. Yes, you're here because you are interested in the fertility care side, but most of the questions we get are, how do I balance my hormones? How do I balance my hormones naturally? How do I know if I need to balance my hormones? I think that's one of the bigger ones we get. Like, I don't know. Is this something I need to think about? This is why we want to start talking about these things. So this balance piece is there. We need to find it, but it's going to look a little bit different for each person. But testosterone and estrogen need to be in balance. These two are really connected because there's enzymes between the two that convert back and forth. So testosterone is converted to estrogen. Estrogen is converted to testosterone, meaning if one is high, the other's likely going to be high. If one is low, the other's likely also going to be low. Or the opposite, high and low can happen as well. Your testosterone might be high because your body is actually choosing to push estrogen up, We don't want that. Other things can happen. Your testosterone might be low because your body is choosing to push it to estrogen, leaving you estrogen dominant. We're going to talk about that in another video. So we need not just our hormone production to be balanced, but we actually need to make sure these enzymes are doing what they're supposed to do so that our entire hormonal cascade, which is crazy to look at, and I'm going to show you. It's going to be backwards on the video, but I have this on my desk. I use it every day. It's laminated, it's fancy. This is something I reference multiple times a day. Every single piece of this needs to be functioning well for you to not just feel well, but to have success in the fertility department. So how do we know beyond symptoms? I gave you the symptoms. If you can check off more than 2 of any of those symptoms, then the next step is definitely testing. Let's actually do some testing and see what's happening versus Googling good testosterone supplement. How do I boost my testosterone? And then cart, buy now. Let's actually know what your levels are so we can support them properly. Hey, Vicky. I'm glad someone let me know that they can hear me. Okay, so how do we test? We do that in the blood. So you're going to do blood work. You're going to check free testosterone, total testosterone, and your DHEA. This is going to give us a really good, clear picture of your androgen status. You can also check your sex hormone binding globulin. So knowing it's high, now we can see, okay, if T is low, testosterone is low, and SHBG is high, we know why. It's eating it all up. So now we have to work on lowering those things. Time of cycle does not matter as much as in the other labs that we've talked about over the year. It's your estrogen, it's your progesterone. So you don't need to do it at any given time. We do get a surge of testosterone around ovulation, but for the most part, women are fairly balanced throughout their entire cycle. So any day is fine. You can just lump that in with your day 3 testing or with your post-ovulation testing. It's going to be accurate regardless. How this relates to fertility is elevated androgens, elevated testosterone can actually turn off that connection between your brain and your ovary that triggers ovulation. This is one of the reasons why many women with PCOS actually have long irregular cycles, because you're not ovulating. This is a really, really important piece to getting pregnant. So we need to know why this is happening. Same with if you're not getting a period at all. We need to look into testosterone. If you have high androgens and one of the other diagnostic criteria for PCOS, there's your answer. But what do we do about it? I think that's the most important part. So ovulation being shut off is not helpful when you're trying to get pregnant. So even if you don't have the classical symptoms of high androgens, it's still worth investigating if you have long, irregular, or absent periods and you're trying to get pregnant. Because even if we stimulate ovulation with something like letrozole or Clomid, if those high androgens are there, it's still going to impact your body's ability to ovulate even with being the synthetically stimulated. It's going to impact implantation. It's also going to impact miscarriage risk. So we still need to deal with that underlying issue at hand. The silver lining through all of this is that elevated androgens actually improves egg quality. We know from the research that declining testosterone is linked with the progressive decline of egg quality. And we see that women with higher androgens and PCOS actually have better egg quality later in life. And it's not just because they're ovulating less, so they have more and they have a higher reserve, but we actually see an improved quality in the eggs. So there are studies showing that women with PCOS are able to get pregnant later in life. Either maybe they still need some ART, an IUI, or IVF, whatever that looks like, but they have actually higher success rates because their elevated androgens has protected their egg quality over time from declining, which is really cool. There's other pieces at play with genetics and telomere shortening and oxidative stress and damage, but I think that's a really important piece. With low testosterone, how that might impact fertility, we kind of deduce that if elevated testosterone protects egg quality, low testosterone is going to speed that process along. So there's definitely conflicting I don't even know if I want to get into this, to be perfectly honest with you, but there's conflicting information on the internet about how the birth control pill impacts fertility. There's experts that say it actually preserves fertility because you're not ovulating. There's experts that say that's actually not the case. It can severely damage fertility because of the hormonal imbalance issues that come along with the pill when you're trying to transition off. I do stand in a camp of something that you're taking for 10 plus years sometimes that's turning off your estrogen, turning off your progesterone because you're not ovulating, turning off testosterone is going to impact your fertility. And I think this testosterone piece, especially with the pill decreasing testosterone, is an important thing to consider when we're trying to get pregnant. And obviously the damage is done. You know, if it's there, it's done. Now we support your body moving forward. We can't be upset or angry or mad or resentful at ourselves for making that choice. In that moment when we're young and we're put on the pill, it was the right choice for you. Then, at least with the information that you had, it felt like the right choice. That's not your fault. It's not something we can take back, but it is something that we can now make sure you're doing everything within your power to reestablish that hormonal connection between your brain and your ovaries, reestablish healthy ovulation, reestablish healthy hormone production. And this is essentially what we work on inside Fertility Confidence Method to make sure we're getting you to that place where this feels possible for you. So we deduce that low testosterone may impact just based on egg quality, basically. So all this being said, we talked about symptoms, we talked about testing. You now know how these things might actually be impacting you. So what the heck do you do about it? This is the part where I give you my medical disclaimer. Unless you are in here and I actually am your doctor, you can ignore the medical disclaimer. But most of you, I am not your doctor. I'm not your healthcare provider yet. With that being said, all of this is just educational based. I am not prescribing anything for you before you start any treatments, any supplements at all. I highly recommend you talk to your healthcare provider. Make sure it's right for you. Make sure that you're getting good healthy dosages, you're getting good quality products. All of that is insanely important. And the product piece, the quality, the therapeutic dosage is why I hugely advocate for all of you to work with a healthcare professional that understands that piece. You know, there's a lot of information on the internet, and unfortunately, a lot of companies are making products that don't have good quality or good dosages. And so you're investing money. It might feel like a lot of money, and then you're not getting any benefit from it. So let's invest your resources, your hard-earned money into supplements that are actually going to do something for you. So what do we do when your androgens are high? We need to remember I said two things. Androgens can be high because of stress. Actually, three things. Androgens can be high because of stress. Androgens can be high because of insulin resistance, pushing ovary production. Androgens can also be high because you're estrogen dominant and your body is trying to shunt that estrogen up to testosterone. So there's a few different options here. Stress management is probably the biggest thing we need to do, especially if your DHEA, which comes from the adrenals, is also high. Yoga, meditation, journaling, walking, saying no to things that you do not want to do, looking at your workload as a whole, delegating. All of these strategies are going to look different for you based on where you're at in your season of life. But stress management is insanely important. We need to make space for a baby. If you're trying to have a baby, we need to make space for a baby. There's a very energetic principle underlying here that how can something fit in when there's no room? But on top of that, we need to make space to breathe so that our cortisol, our adrenals, our DHEA aren't just constantly up here. And if you're constantly living up here, your body perceives it's in danger. And it doesn't know the difference between a work deadline, saying yes all the time, doing all the things, and being chased by a lion. It just sees danger. And when your body is perceiving danger, the absolute last thing it wants to do is make a baby, because that's not safe. This is not a safe place to bring a baby in. So we really need to focus on stress management. And this is actually pillar 3 in my 3-pillar fertility success system inside Fertility Confidence Method. I'm rebranding a little bit. It's now going to be mindset and stress management because I think that is a topic for another day. But stress management is a huge, huge piece, and it can be strongly linked to high androgens and with PCOS as well. The other piece being insulin resistance. If you have insulin resistance, there are so many things you can do. I'm not going to get into it in this video. There's older videos. If you search insulin or if you search PCOS, there's a lot of resources that you can find. Feel free to comment below the video. We'll help you find that. And then the second piece was the third piece, was shunting of estrogen to testosterone. So if you're estrogen dominant, we now need to work on estrogen, not necessarily lowering testosterone. If we lower your estrogen, your testosterone is going to lower. So this is where testing becomes very vital, because we can do all the supplements, all the nutrition, all the lifestyle things to hammer down your testosterone. But if we're not touching your estrogen, if we're not supporting your estrogen, it's just going to keep happening, right? So we're kind of on like this vicious cycle. We're not going to get anywhere. So doing the proper testing to really know where that elevated androgens are coming from is actually going to guide treatment. So it becomes really important. When are androgens? I will talk about a couple products. Saw palmetto is probably one of the most common herbal products talked about for lowering high androgens because it's an aromatase inhibitor. So it actually shuts off that enzymatic process between estrogen and testosterone. So that's a really nice one to use, especially when both of those hormones are at play. I also commonly use licorice and white peony comboed together with my PCOS women. Sorry, there's hair on my face. Especially those who have high DHEA. We have a lot of research. Licorice, amazing adaptogen, helps support the adrenals, reduce DHEA. White peony, also doing that, but with the coupled effect of lowering testosterone as a whole. So that's a really nice combo to use as well. Nettle is another herb that I really like. It makes a really nice tea. It's helpful for lowering androgens. It's also great for allergies and water retention. It's high in minerals, iron. It's wonderful. So nettle tea can also be a really good one. And spearmint tea is the other tea that has a lot of research around lowering androgens and PCOS. So 2 to 3 cups. It has to be spearmint. So mint, not okay. Spearmint is important. That can help to lower androgens as well. What can you do if your androgens are low? This is a little bit of a different conversation. One thing being you can do bioidentical therapy to actually replenish testosterone. NDs, naturopathic doctors in Ontario can't prescribe this. Other practitioners can. One day, hopefully, I will have access to it, but not yet. So I don't know much about that. You can also replenish DHEA. In Canada, DHEA is a controlled substance. You need a prescription. In the States, it's the Wild West. You can literally get DHEA from like a 7-Eleven, which honestly, totally blows my mind. It makes no sense, but it is what it is. So that is a piece to look at if your androgens, your DHEA are low. Again, stress management is still very, very important when we're dealing with low, because we want to nourish the adrenals. We want to boost that DHEA and cortisol production so that it can actually shunt the pathway the way that it's supposed to. But weight training, exercise, good healthy sleep, make sure you're eating enough healthy fats, make sure you're eating enough protein. These are the building blocks of actually making hormones. Hormones are made from fat, from cholesterol. If you're eating a low-fat diet, if you're not eating enough calories, your body's not going to be able to produce enough hormones. And I'm not just talking about testosterone, but estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, DHEA, the whole lot of them. So we really need to look at nutrition here. It's super important. And then if you were on birth control, like we already had this conversation, it is what it is. We can't do anything about it, but we can support your detoxification pathways, get those synthetic hormones out, reestablish that connection between your brain and your ovaries, get your endogenous hormone production rocking and rolling again. So we have a few different options depending on if you're high or if you're low. Again, like I mentioned before going into here, Hormones are not a one-size-fits-all solution. You need to work with a practitioner that really understands and gets what they're talking about, knows how to test, and then knows how to treat to get a tailored plan for you. And these are the things that we do inside Fertility Confidence Method. So if you're interested in learning more about that, how you can work with me, how you can work with my team, please feel free to throw a comment, send me a DM. We'll get you set up with a clarity call. I'm going to actually post the link for the clarity call when I pop off this video here so you can get scheduled in. We have a few slots left for November, which is really exciting. And then we'll go from there. So any questions at all that come in, especially when you guys watch the replay, just put a hashtag Kelsey Duncan, tag me so that I can actually see them. I'm happy to come back and answer. I do see some here. So Vicky, if you're still here, it is possible to technically have PCOS with a regular period. The diagnostic criteria of PCOS are 2 of 3 things. Either you don't have a period, or you have a long irregular period, you have cysts on your ovaries, or you have high androgens. So you can have a regular period, but if you have cysts on your ovaries or high follicle count and you have high androgens, you would technically fall into that PCOS diagnosis. So is possible. It's not as common, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't see it very often where I'm like, oh, you have PCOS, but you have like a regular 28-day cycle. I don't see it very often. Usually ovulation and your period are actually impacted, but you can still have high androgens and not have PCOS. You can still have insulin resistance and not have PCOS. And these 2 things can still impact your hormones, impact your fertility without it being PCOS. So something to consider if you're wondering. Jessica wants to know. Oh yeah, Jessica, I just sent you a voice message. So we'll chat more there. All right, ladies, that is it. So if you have any further questions, let me know. Make sure you tag me. And I hope you guys all have a really wonderful, wonderful weekend. Take care.